You guys seem to be enjoying these laying on the couch watching random anime vlogs, so here comes another one. This time I'm going to be tackling a different show, quite different, because this isn't one I have any strong opinions about. It's just one that I've never expected to be that into, but have always been fascinated by the existence of, which is Horizon on the Middle of Nowhere. All I really know about this show going into it is that it's unbelievably complicated. I know it has tons and tons of factions and systems and characters, and it throws everything at you really hard and heavy. I remember trying to... I don't know if I ever finished the first episode of this back when it came out. I either didn't finish an episode or watched like one, maybe even two. I don't know. I really don't remember. But at the time that this show came out was a time when I really wasn't that into like heavily plot-driven shows because I always had trouble keeping track of everything. I would usually zone out when people started throwing out names and political stuff and all this extra information, so really wasn't my type of show back then. But these days, I'm a lot more interested in those kinds of like weird, complex, difficult to parse narratives. Now, I know that it's going to be twice as confusing because this is one of those anime where, like, the light novels were already pretty, like, incredibly dense with information and stuff, and then the anime makes it even more confusing because it doesn't cover everything, and it doesn't cover in a linear order, so, it's probably confusing, but I have heard a lot of people who do like the anime version, including fans of the light novels, so I at least want to see if it'll pique my interest, and I'm gonna, make sure I soldier through at least a few episodes, because I don't expect this to be something I like immediately, but I'm intrigued enough by its existence to give it more of a shot than I probably normally would. So after watching the first episode, there's definitely something admirable about this show's sheer dedication to maddening chaos. It's like the show takes place in like its own unique setting with its own unique world that is already like you're trying to parse like where it's taking place and what's happening, and then there's like 100,000 fucking characters. All of them have totally different designs that are all like way over detailed. You've got girls with giant boobs, giant hair, giant outfits, sometimes all in the same character. You got heterochromia, you got monster people, you got angel wings. Everyone's got their own unique weapon that all do different things. There's different systems of magic. There's different types of attacks. There's like everything has a name and a purpose. And there's just so much of it. And it's all like presented, like every character design is so detailed, and yet there'll be 40 of them on the screen. Then they'll be talking about stuff you don't understand yet. Most of the first episode is like an action scene that's just introducing all these characters and their powers. But then there's all this throwaway dialogue about these different factions and what they're doing. A long narrated exposition at the end that's explaining like the history of the world, but while not showing images that convey that history, so it's like it's feeding you two different strains of information at the same time. There's music that's like techno music or like electronic dance music with like vocals over it, like multi-track vocals in the music. There's just so much happening. It is overwhelming. It's crazy. Like, even Kekai Sensen wasn't this difficult to follow. And it does all this with no attempt to, like, ease you in. Where, like, to use Kekai Sensen as an example, there's, like, a clear main character who you're following from the start, and you, like, get his motivations or why he's there in the first episode. There's nothing like that. It just starts off with, like, this classroom, like, there's a teacher, and she's like, one of you has to touch me before I get to this certain location. And, like, that's the only narrative through line of the episode, and everything else is just watching things happen. The actual apparent main character shows up at the very end, and his thing that he wants, like, his goal is that he's saying that he's gonna finally ask out this girl who apparently died 10 years ago, and everyone else in the show knows what he's talking about, and I have no idea what he's talking about. It's like, you know, when other shows make fun of like overly complicated light novels, like in Oregairu or in Ore no Imoto, like when there's like the Chunibyo character who's writing the insanely over detailed light novel. This is what they're making fun of, and it's just crazy trying to keep up with all of it. It's amazing. It really reminds me of the kind of thing that I used to dream up when I was in like middle school, where I would just have stories where every character is some unique trope or something. But this one, they're not even like tropes. It's not like a, you know, this one's a vampire, and this like is the order not is the order a zombie? Is this a zombie? Kore wa zombie desu ka? In that show, like, the joke was like, this one's a Dullahan, this one's a magical girl, this one's a zombie, you know, it was mostly played for laughs. But in this, it's like, every character is a totally unique, its own thing creature. They're all, like, weird, crazy things, and it's like, what is it, like, can they possibly explain all of this? And I know that, Horizon, I love looking at the picture of the novels, because I think they're considered light novels, but the first book is the size of like 3 or 4 light novels. Like, it's fucking massive, so I know there's just like tons and tons of shit. And, you know, as much as I kind of admire the complexity of it, I'm wondering if I will ever be able to process it, because again, there's so little, like, attachment, there's so little, like, here's a main character, here's a plot that you can be interested in, you know, to help you explore this. Because really, shows like Hunter x Hunter, like those, you know, long-running shonen shows, often get this complicated, where there's, like, tons of characters who all have their own powers, and this big expansive world with its own systems, but they ease you into it. This show has no easing. It's just like, boom, here you are. You're dropped in. Fucking try to process all of this. It's crazy. That girl with Miyuki Sawashiro's voice. Super hot. Well, episode 2 has continued to be utterly baffling. Most of it was exposition either about the world or about certain characters. Mostly about Miyuki Sawashiro's character, whom I'm not entirely sure of the gender of at this point. Apparently she was a girl, and then they were forcing her into a gender change, but then it seems like they stopped halfway through? Doesn't matter. Either way, she's hot. But the, like, plot is so over my head, I don't really know where anything's going or what any of it means. And the funny thing is that the parts that I like the most are the weird little details, where, like, the robot girl is, like, pouring water on these weird little black blob monster things. For some reason, like, she's taking care of them, and that involves pouring water over them and feeding them grass. There's just so much little bizarre stuff. There's one character who has a hat that has eyes on it, and he's wearing, like, a scarf over his face, and the eyes emote for him on his hat. It's so batshit. There's so much stuff happening. Okay, so after 3 episodes, I'm getting the impression that I'm basically in the prologue of this show. That basically it's just trying to introduce all of the necessary concepts before the point where the main character guy, Tori, confesses his feelings to Horizon. And for whatever reason that I have no clue about, that will set in motion the events of the plot of this show. Because so far all it's been doing is building up to this moment. It's just been constantly introducing new characters and concepts and backstory elements, all while building up to the only plot event, which is the main character confessing to Horizon, which I can only assume, when it finally fucking happens, will make the plot begin. And at this point, I'm so curious as to what the fuck this show's about that I'm going to keep watching it just in the hopes of eventually understanding what the hell is going on. Before that, though, I think I'm definitely going to have to go buy some headache medication because my brain has been throbbing watching this. Like, pretty much by the end of episode 2, it was like... And now I can, like, feel my pulse in my brain. Okay, check it out. I have procured 500 glorious tablets of ibuprofen. Hopefully, this will be enough to get me through the rest of Horizon in the Middle of Nowhere. By the way, I keep forgetting to mention this, but the teacher, character design, mwah, ooh, a surprising amount of fairly cute girls in this show. I'm not into like the giant hair, giant boob, over-designed kind of look like the main character's sister, but more of the designs are pretty cool than I expected. I feel like every time I come close to understanding what's happening in this show, they introduce a bunch of new characters doing a bunch of new shit that I don't understand. A guy in armor with a spear just led a bunch of combat maids into a raid on some kind of giant black box building in the middle of nowhere. There's all this imagery of like everything's supposed to look kind of like the Warring States period, but then also sci-fi and technology. And there's just more and more stuff, symbols and concepts. Just they never stop. It never stops coming. It's just a constant stream. What the fuck is happening? I don't know why I thought that this show might start making more sense once things started happening. Because now that things seem to be happening in episode 4, I have no idea what's going on. There was a lot of action and explosions and ship battles. I didn't know who any of the relevant characters were or why they were fighting. I truly don't grasp the consequences it has on anyone. I don't know why this is going to affect the main characters. They keep saying that their lives are about to change. I don't know why. I don't know why any of this is happening. None of it makes any sense to me. I don't know if maybe knowing more about the Warring States period would help. Is there a cultural thing I'm not getting? Is it just that I'm supposed to have read the light novels? Are they more comprehensible? Because, like, honestly, I can't imagine trying to comprehend this as a light novel with so many characters and so much stuff going on to be described and memorized. Like, not having the visual element to help with that, not being able to see the characters on screen and therefore keep track of them visually, because I don't know anyone's fucking name other than Horizon and Tori, because they've said them a lot of times, but like, I can't even begin to imagine processing all of these names as this show goes on, or as, like, reading it in a book and not seeing the characters. It's way beyond overwhelming. And, you know, to give this show some credit, like, the production is pretty okay. Like, the animation's nothing to write home about, and the cinematography is really flat and boring, and that's one of the biggest issues, is that it's just, like, it's more confusing because it doesn't present things in a way that is easy to follow. But, like, at the very least, I appreciate that there's so many characters with such detailed designs, and they're almost always on model. It's never, like, ugly, you know, it's impressive that they can keep track of this many different design elements and keep them all looking okay, and stuff's usually moving, it's not just a bunch of static shots. And there's an unbelievable voice cast on this show. Like, half my fucking favorite actors are in this show. It's got Yuki Aoi, it's got Tomokazu Sugita, Takahito Koyasu, just a whole list of great names. A lot of people who are in Gintama, in fact. But I just, like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I just fundamentally don't understand what's happening. Like, I'm amazed that a show, like, again, if the light novels are significantly easier to follow, and people who are fans of the light novels are the ones who are expected to watch the show, then I kind of get why it would exist. It seems like it would be fun to see these characters brought to life with A-list voice acting and, you know, decent character designs and animation, but, like, for fuck's sake, as a new viewer just watching the anime, it's like, what is this? What the hell is it? So, episode 5 started with a continuation of all the stuff I didn't know what was going on in episode 4. Then halfway through the episode, out of nowhere, a villain shows up, explains the plot of the show. He's like, hey, I'm about to cause the end of the world to happen. You guys all gotta find 9 pieces of armor, and come stop me. I made the armor out of this girl, Horizon, that I accidentally killed, and her soul's in this robot that this other kid's in love with. Have fun. And then he blows up. And then the scene from before about the characters I knew nothing about continued. All this emotional, dramatic stuff happens to these characters who I literally have just met and don't know anything about or why they're fighting or why anything's happening. And then Horizon gets whisked away. And and that's the episode. And it's worth mentioning, everything that's happened so far in this show has been in the span of, like, 12 hours, I think. Like, it's all just been, like, one day. Oh my god. It's, like, I'm trying to, like, reconnect all the things I just saw in my brain. I can't process it. It's terrible. I think it's safe to say this show is terrible. 'Cause everything that's happening is dumb. Like, the episode was like, there's suddenly giant robot, like, in completely straight-faced, a giant robot fights a robot maid with the soul of a general guy who's dressed like a samurai with a spear. Like, the soul of his wife is in this maid robot, and they're fighting a guy with a giant gun thing that destroys, like, a 3-kilometer radius, and the maid can manipulate gravity, and the spear, if you're reflected in it, I think it makes you immobile. I wasn't completely keeping track of all the powers and what they do because they were being explained very fast, and were only relevant for the immediate moment after they were explained. It would be like, or immediately, like, they would be explained either right after they'd just been used or right before they were about to be used, and then all those characters died. So, I can't believe it. Now, there's a style of storytelling, there's a term I've come up with over the last decade called Wikipedia storytelling. And it's where you've got a story that's got so much going on, so many different complex angles and ideas, that the best way to really keep track of it all is just by reading about it all on Wikipedia or on the wiki for the show, because there's just so much of it that's not really immediately relevant to the story. The perfect example for this would be like the Type Moon universe, where there's so many different magic systems and creatures and stuff. I really thought it was hilarious one time. I found a Wikipedia article called, like, Vampires in the Type Moon universe, and it was this enormous article explaining how vampires work in the Type Moon universe, mostly, I guess, Tsukihime. But I was just like, this is all, like, that extra info, all that extra database, random knowledge that you would have if you, for some reason, are deeply interested in all these systems. And I feel like this is one of those where, like, honestly, the show tells you so little about what's going on. It's picking such random little elements of this giant world and just throwing them at you with no dramatic structure at all. No, like, emotional context. It's just like, here's a bunch of ideas. Whichever ones you think are cool, go ahead and run with them, you know? And it's like mind-numbing to watch because I don't care about any of the stuff. And so far, like, I like that the show is so chaotic. I like that kind of thing. I like when there's a universe that's dense with ideas and things. But there has to be, like, some thematic relevance to all of it to make it interesting. Like, I don't get what the theme of this show is. I have no idea. I really don't know what kind of message it's trying to convey, what its characters are all about, what the world is trying to suggest or anything. Like, there's nothing to connect to. There's no human part of it to be like, oh yeah, I relate to that. I know what that's like, you know, or that says something interesting about society as a whole. There's nothing like that. It's just this non-stop dumping of characters and their powers and their situations, but never their like, the closest we've had to, like, a real emotional take on anything was Miyuki Sawashiro's character being like, yeah, I was forced to become this thing, and they forced me to go through all this shit, and it made my life shittier. And that's like the closest thing to a human character development we've had, whereas everything else is just like the details without the core. It's like if someone was trying to explain to you what's interesting about a Digibro video, and they just described that I have a giant beard, and that some of my videos involve walking around with a camera. You know, like, there's no element of the human of who I am in that description. Like, that's how I feel about these characters so far. It's like, okay, well, the one girl's got a spear, and her eyes are different colors, and she has this voice, but I have no idea what her story is, or why I'm supposed to care about her, or that for anything or anyone in the show. I know there's a bunch of kingdoms that are fighting, but I don't know what their cultures are like. I don't know why they're fighting. I don't know who I'm supposed to root for. I don't really get what relationship the kids have with the country as a whole. I don't fucking get any of it. It's all just disconnected information floating around. Like, when it just went from, like, 3 episodes of just talking about the main character, the main classroom, like, you know, these kids with these special powers who are all training to, I think they're supposed to eventually become, like, part of the government or part of the military after they graduate from the school. It's really difficult to tell, but, and then it just suddenly cuts to all this stuff happening, like this battle going on, with all these other characters who have nothing to do with the main characters, and nothing ties it all together until that ending part where the guy's like, we are capturing Horizon. The guy, the main character guy likes her, so that's gonna be something for him. But who are all the other people? There's like fucking 80 characters in this show, and none of them have any reason to be there, except for the main guy. I'm so lost. I can't believe it's real in a way. Like, watching this show really is like having a, like, 14-year-old kid who's just come up with all these ideas for this universe, for this story he wants to create, and he's just rattling all of them off at you. No story has been planned, no idea why any of it matters, what's compelling about this story. He's just created this universe, and he's just rattling off details in no order, with no coherency. And, you know, I like the idea of the Wikipedia story, of, like, you know, looking into a character and then figuring out, like, what events that character was a part of, and then it's kind of like learning about history, you know, when you pick someone like, hey, let's learn everything about Hitler, and then you learn about World War II, and then you learn about what other people were important in World War II, and what the countries were doing, and what society was like. That can be interesting, but this show is presented in such a way where it's just throwing random details at you. It doesn't pick a compelling starting point. It doesn't pick, here's a great character that'll make you care about this conflict, or here's a great idea that'll make you care about this conflict. It's just random shit. And I honestly think I would get more out of reading a Wikipedia article about this story than I would reading the story, watching the story. And like, but so far none of it is interesting enough to make me want to do that. Like, if there's been times before where like I care about the story already, so now I also like you know, there's some kind of, in like Toho's a great example where like I get interested in like Romelia Scarlet. Like, she's got a cool design. I like the idea of her character. So I start looking into it and I find out like what her backstory is, what characters are relevant to her, and then I can go and like look at all these fan interpretations and stuff. You know, it's like an in to get into this whole universe of Gensokyo and of Toho. And this show has none of that. It's just like a bunch of people who have no personality, nothing of interest, a boring world because I don't understand the world. There's like a floating ship. I don't know why. I don't know what the point is. There was one point where they were like, there was a real world and then there was the fake version of the world, and then those worlds fused together, and I'm like, why? Why was there a fake version of the world? What the fuck's the story behind that? I really don't know yet. It's like if you took a video game that was like an RPG that was heavy on lore, where like every item had a description and like there was like every town you went to had a piece of the backstory. And instead of playing through the game and learning all those lore pieces, you just picked like you put a randomizer into the files of the game and just read random descriptions of random shit with no idea how any of it's connected to each other. And then like also it kept making up new things as it went. I don't know. It's fucking mind-blowing. It's hard to believe that a story can be made this way and that people enjoy this and watch it. You know, I know this isn't the most popular show, and I'm sure that like a large part of the fandom of this show is just people who are fans of the light novels, which again, I don't really know how those work, if they're any different. I really don't have much desire to read them because that would involve reading a light novel, which is not usually a very pleasant experience, especially if it's fan translated. So, I gotta say, you know, my plan was to watch this until I understood it, and episode 5 did explain the plot. It explained that, like, what has to happen in the story. So, like, I feel like, okay, I get what the show, like, what's going to happen, per se, even if I don't understand why anything's relevant or why any of it's happening. And I really can't take watching any more of it, because at this point, my brain is scrambled. I don't get what's happening or why I should care. I honestly thought, after episode 3, that maybe, like, it seemed like it was starting to make more sense and like it had figured out who its cast was, but then just dumping all these new characters and all this new stuff in episode 4 was like, I don't even care about the other characters yet. Why are you making me care about... There's like a whole dramatic narrative with brand new characters who just showed up. It's fucking ridiculous. Alright. That's it. I didn't even notice till just now, looking at the staff list, that this show is also from the same director as the Asterisk War. Manabu Ono. You're a card. So I'd considered not even releasing this video about Horizon on the Middle of Nowhere, because who cares? I don't think anybody is going to be interested, other than those who have seen the show, who probably like the show, who will probably just have heard all this before. But then I thought, what the hell, let's at least give it more of a look. Let's look at the Horizon Wiki. Unfortunately, the Horizon Wiki and the Wikipedia page don't really have a ton of information. Most of it's stuff that either already happened in what I saw of the show, or is like just describing what plot events were coming up. But then I went to go look at the actual light novel, the translation effort over on Bakatsuki, and the light novel basically is its own Wikipedia, because it constantly, like, the whole opening part of it is, like, glossary after glossary of, like, information about the world and the school and the fucking magic systems, ley lines. Like, it's the characters, like, descriptions of who each of them are. It's just an enormous fucking glossary of information before the book even starts. Just, like, teaching you about the setting. And then you get to the actual story, and immediately it's like this in-depth description of, like, the ships, like, written in such a way that I don't care. Like, none of it, I don't know if it's just a translation, but honestly, I don't give a fuck. Like, I read through a little of this, and I will say it's a little easier to follow in that after each sentence I can stop and think about what was just said, but there's so many names to keep track of, and all the names are complicated. Everyone's got some fucking, 2 different 4-syllable names and shit. So, there's just no way. I'm sure there's a type of person who is very into this kind of story where it's just loaded with as much ridiculous, intense detail as possible, but I guess I'm just not that person.